Our eyes work kind of like medium angle lenses, like a 50 millimeter lens, for example. We see things kind of as medium angle shots. So it's more interesting when we do videos if we have wide angle shots and then tight shots like zoom lens shots. And if we put those two together, it's even more interesting. We might have a wide scene setting shot and then a tight shot of the same scene. Edit those together, we hold our viewers' interest. So in this lesson, I'm going to talk about how you do wide and tight edits. In the next lesson, we're going to take it to the next level and do wide and tight shots with matched action. So here we're going to focus only on wide and tight shots. So go to Working Files and open up Projects, and then double-click on Wide Tight, 0702 Wide Tight. This project has several clips down inside this bin. Let's switch over to the icon view to take a look at them. Once you do that, you open up this bin here by Control double-clicking on it or Command double-clicking on it in Mac to open it up here in place. You can see we have a wide shot of this waterfall given to us by Digital Juice for use in our course here. Here's the tight shot of that same waterfall. Scroll on down, we have these two horses kind of hanging out there and a tight shot of the two horses. Moving on down the line, we've got the tight shot of this dressage instructor and a wide shot of the instructor. And a wide shot of this young lady drawing here, kind of a medium wide drawing and a medium tight and a tight. So here we're going to put the wide with the sort of medium tight and then the medium wide with the very tight when we do all this editing. So to do this, let's start off with a scenic shot. We'll make a new sequence. Just drag this first shot down to this new item icon. Here we go, drag it down. That makes a sequence with that clip right there called Scenic 1. Let's switch over to the list view so you can see that a little better. I'll scroll down. There's Scenic 1. You can click on it again if you want to and change the name to, let's say, Wide Tight, something like that. So we know we're working on there. And notice when you make the change here, the change shows up here inside the timeline panel. Okay, here's the shot, and the shot goes like this. It's kind of noisy. I'm going to turn off the audio for a second here. You can see that it has this lovely movement there. And let's see, does it settle down? Kind of settles down, slow movement at the end there. So we can just, let's say, as it gets toward the end, let's just put a tight shot in of the waterfall. The shot itself is almost 9 seconds long, and I could check that out by pressing the down arrow key to go to it and see that that clip ends at 8:26, basically 9 seconds. So it's a pretty long shot, and it's a relatively slow move. Normally you don't like to do edits in the middle of a move like this, but it sort of settles down a little bit toward the end. So I'm going to put my next clip up against this, but maybe slide it in just a bit. So let's take a look at that next shot. We'll go to the scenic number 2. I'm going to double click on it and view it up here in the source monitor. There we go. It's a tight shot. Let's see if it moves at all. It's kind of loud, so stand by for a second. So it's a static shot. We got plenty of action going on there, but it's a static shot of the top of this waterfall here. So I'm just going to drag this down and cover up the end of this. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to do an overwrite of part of the clip. We've got the current time indicator where we want to make our edit right about there. I'm going to drag this down on top of the end of the clip. We're going to line it up with the current time indicator like so. I'm going to drag it over. Right now it snaps, but I keep on going to the left and it'll snap to the current time indicator like that. And now we've made that edit. You won't hear the audio now because I've got it muted over here. Let's see how that works. See how the edit works. Goes from there to there. And that is a typical wide and tight edit. It's much more interesting if you can do that. And by the way, it's more interesting when you shoot this if you can get your camera closer to the subject when you get your tight shot as opposed to just using your zoom lens for a couple of reasons. One, the shot is just more interesting when you're closer. Two, the sound is more interesting too. So get your camera up close if you're going to get a wide and tight shot, if you can. So there's a little wide and tight shot. Let's move on down the line here. We'll go to the horses. We got the dressage exterior 4 and 5. Let's open up both of them inside the source monitor by clicking on one and control clicking on the next, or command clicking in Mac and drag them to the source monitor. They open up there. You can see the little drop down list. We got the two guys. Got the tight here and the wide there. Let's just take a look at that. Wait, the camera kind of has to settle down a bit there. There we go. Now the camera's sort of settled down. A little bit of motion, but not too bad. So I'm going to have that be the in point once the camera settles down. And that would be plenty of time, 4 seconds for that clip there. But before I bring it down to the sequencer, let me take a look at the other clip, the tight shot. Go there. So I want to make sure that at least they're more or less facing each other when I bring it in. So they kind of turn away a lot. So we got to get our shot right toward the beginning here, where they're more or less close together, because the shot we're going to have this follow has them end up kind of close to each other there, like that. We're almost making a matched action edit here. I'm kind of setting you up for that next thing. So we'll go wide here first. We'll drag this down. We can put it off to the side if we want, or we can pop it next to it, whatever you like. I'm putting it off to the side here. I'll get the separate clip. Then we'll go get that number 5 there. Want to be able to pick some spot to start. And the start, I think, here would be the beginning, because they're close together there, but they drift apart here later. So I'm going to take that and just drag the whole clip down, like that. Let's see how that works. Let me get the audio back on now. There you go, and that's pretty close. People paying attention might go, wait a minute, that wasn't exactly a matched action, but we have a tight and a wide, and it's reasonably close, such that people aren't going to think that we totally goofed that up. And then you could probably trim this guy here, just to make the clips about the same length. There you go, so that's a little bit of a wide and tight shot. It's a little more interesting when you go wide and tight. Let's go tight and wide, just so that people can also see how that works. I've got these 2 shots here, Dressage Instructor 2 and 3. I'm going to go clicking on one and Controller Command click on the other and drag them up to the source monitor. There's the wide shot, which is kind of like a reveal. The first shot, you may not know that she's actually inside this place and with an arena there, so it may be good to start tight and then reveal things. At first you just hear her talking or see her talking, and then the next shot is, oh, she's talking and there's a horse arena going on here. So let's pick a place where she's talking. Let's see what we got here.
Ah, we're losing it. You're losing that bend and you're losing that activity because it's taking too long. I would.
So I'm thinking we want to have that little soundbite there, but not the second part of it. So let's see. So right there, I'm going to pull back to where she starts right there and have that be the end point, where she finishes that little phrase before the other writer starts talking.
That activity because it's taking too long.
So I'll just cut right there. Have the out point be there. Do I get down to the sequence here in the timeline? Let's go get the wide shot now. And we'll take a look at that and see how that sounds.
And then walk.
Okay, we don't want
and
that
hind
part.
Hind end. Aha, good job, super. And then go ahead and canter again. Good for you.
Let's see there. Okay, let's listen to that for a second. Find a nice little segment.
Hind end. Aha, good job, super. And then go ahead and canter again. Good for you.
That's kind of nice. So that'll be the out point. Good for you. Go to the beginning here.
Hind end. Aha, good job, super.
I think we'll start right there.
And then go ahead and canter again.
There we go. So that'll be kind of a logical sequence of audio. Drag this down next to it. Let's see how that looks and sounds.
Ah, we're losing it. You're losing that bend and you're losing that activity because it's taking too long. And then go ahead and canter again. Good for you.
There we go. More or less works together. But you see it's a tight and a wide this time, which is an interesting way to do your story. You keep viewers' interest that way. You could start your story with the tight shot and people going, okay, who is this woman? What's she doing? And then you start hearing the words canter and things like that, and you see that there's an arena here. You sort of figure out, aha, this is a dressage instruction or some kind of horse instruction. Okay, let's move on down the line here to the other clips, the drawing clips. These clips are not high definition. These are NTSC. If you hover over them, you can see it says 720 by 480, 0.9091. Well, 720 by 480 is NTSC, and 0.9 is the aspect ratio for each little rectangle inside the screen, and 0.9 means standard definition. If it was 1.2, that would be widescreen. So we need to make a new sequence here. So I'm going to just start off, though, by taking a look at these guys here in the source monitor. So I click on the first one, shift-click on the fourth one, and drag them to the source monitor. There you go. We've got these 4 clips. Always goes to the last one you drag there, so we'll look at the first one. There's this pretty wide shot there. And the next shot, let's see here, kind of medium wide, okay. And then the next shot, we've got medium tight. And the next shot, we've got tight, tight. So we want to go from the wide to the medium tight, and from the medium wide to the very tight. So let's start off by checking this one out. I don't think we need to worry too much about the placement for the edit, other than making sure her hand is actually sort of positioned there when we go to the tight shot, because that's where the tight shot will be. So I'll have that be the out point, go over here to the end point like that, and now I need to make a new sequence. Rather than dragging it here, want to make a new sequence. But I'll show you what happens if we do drag it there. Put it down here. You'll notice that it's not the same size as HD. And all is not lost when you bring something like this to HD. Like I said before, you can put different kinds of formatted video onto the same sequence. What happens, though, is that you get this kind of an issue where the clip doesn't really fit into the format. But you can always adjust the size of the clip like this and make it more or less fit here. But we're not worried about that in this particular lesson. So I'm going to undo that and actually make a new sequence. I'm going to drag her down to this new item icon, make a new sequence, and there it is with that clip already in it. How convenient is that? And if you look at the sequence you just made there, I'll right click on it and look at the sequence settings. You'll see that it's DVN-TSC, which is what we expect, 720 by 480. I'll close this down. Let's get the second shot here. I'm going to go for the medium tight, which is number 3, I think. Yeah, there you go, medium tight. So we've got her hand over here drawing away. So we just go to the medium tight shot here where she's continuing to draw along on this dragonfly. There's an endpoint. It's 6 seconds long, so we'll cut it down to, let's say, 4 or so. There we go. Or about 5, and drag that down. There's our wide and our medium tight. From there to there. And what's kind of interesting is that your viewers don't know exactly what's going on here. So they're kind of going, okay, young lady at the desk doing writing or something. And then the next shot helps tell you a story. Ah, she's doing some artwork here. Very nice. Let's go on down to the medium wide to the super tight. Here's the medium wide, same kind of routine. We want to make sure that her hand is obviously plugging away there, working on the dragonfly when we're done, which she does throughout the entire clip. So I'll just put an endpoint there. 6 seconds right now. We'll make it something less than 6 by clicking an out point. Drag that down here, maybe next to this thing. Here we go. That's the medium wide. And then I'm going to go get the tight shot. And we have her working there at the head and then changing to the body, which I guess that would be the thorax, right? For you insect folks out there. So I'll just actually show both then. So we'll start on the head there as the endpoint. There we get to the thorax there, and we'll just trim there. 5 seconds and drag that down. So now we have this kind of transition from the medium wide to the very tight shot like that. It's always interesting to get up really close. I try to get my camera just a few inches away from some subjects just to really fill up the viewfinder with the shot. So there's your basic rundown on wide shot and tight shot edits and tight shot and wide shot edits. I think it's just a better way to tell a story. It holds viewers' interest, and it's different than the way we normally see the world. In this chapter, we're going to talk about making specialized edits. We're going to step up from learning about the tools and actually apply them to certain kinds of edits. In this lesson, we're going to talk about cutaways. So to follow along, go to Working Files, open up the Projects folder, and open up 0701 Cutaways. This project has 2 sequences, an interview sequence here and a little piano sequence. We're going to work on both of those. So your question might be, what the heck are cutaways? Cutaways are clips that literally cut away from one scene and go to another. You use them under a variety of circumstances. For instance, in this interview, we have this soundbite here. It's going along nicely. And then the cameraman, me, does a really clumsy zoom, awful zoom there, and you want to cover that up without losing the audio. So you cover that up with a cutaway. When you shoot interviews, you always shoot interview cutaways, and I'll explain what those are in a moment. Okay, you have that, and then you have these 2 sound bites put together. You got a soundbite here and a soundbite here. They're both nice sound bites, and look at how they look when I play them together. Here you go there, and boom, see your face kind of jump there? Kind of goes from there to there. And you don't want to just leave that in there. You want to cover up that edit with something to avoid having that kind of jump cut, as it's called. Watch that jump cut. Literally kind of jumps, and you don't want that in there. So we use cutaways to cover up a jump cut. We use cutaways to cover up like a clumsy zoom like that, where we want to keep the audio. Those are a couple of reasons to use cutaways. You also use cutaways if you want to go from one scene to the next, and both shots are very similar. So you want to make sure your audience knows, look, we've gone someplace different. So you put a really obviously different shot, like a tight shot, between 2 wide shots. That's another use of cutaways, which we're not going to use in this particular lesson, but I just want to alert you to that. And then finally, we have this piano sequence over here, and we've got the pianist playing here, and we shot her several times and tried to line up the notes such that her hands were in the right place, but sometimes the metronome in her head wasn't perfect, and who has a perfect metronome in their head? And so the timing of her fingers were just a little bit off on that little shot right there. So we need to cover that up with something. And I shot a cutaway for this just to show you how that works. So we've got these 3 instances that we're going to work on here in this lesson. So let's go back to the interview sequence. I want to cover up this crummy looking zoom. Let's watch that awful zoom.
So that you can chase them around the court and keep them on their toes. So
Whoa, okay, well that's not good. We want to cover that up and then come back to the shot. So we want to lose this zoom. So we want the cutaway to start right about there. We want the end right about there, and then come back to the shot. So that's our first order of business, is to cover that up. We put the current time indicator to the beginning of that clumsy zoom right there, which is about, as you can see, 2004. And now we need to find something to cover that up. So I go back to the project panel. I want to switch over to the icon view and look at the interview shot. So I go to icon view. I want to open up this bin so I can see it inside the project panel. So I control double click on it rather than double click. Double click would open it up in a separate panel. I want to open it up here in this panel. So I control double click on it to open it up here. There we go. So here we got the wide shot, which is actually kind of a good way to start an interview. Lots of times you want to sort of set up an interview with a wide shot like that. In this particular case, she actually has kind of a nice sound bite, but normally you would have a narrator talking here. She's talking about tennis here.
moving to get to the ball.
But nevertheless, we're not worried about the sound bite here. We're just worried about this zoom here. So let's scroll down here and see what we got. Okay, another interview shot. Aha, but here come the cutaways. You got a hand shot, which could be used as a cutaway, a nice tight hand shot. Yet another hand shot. Here we've got a reverse cutaway of the interviewer listening to the interviewee. Always a good thing for a cutaway. And a tight shot of the interviewer listening to the interviewee. All those guys can be used as cutaways. So I want to use this shot here as our cutaway for the zoom. So let's go over here. The zoom starts right about there. Okay, remember around 20 something. I'm going to open up this in the source monitor by double clicking it. Get a better look at it and get some in and out points here. What I need to do is I'm going to go from 2007 to right about there. So I need basically a 2-second and a few frames, like 2-second and 10-frame segment to cover that up. So I need to go over here, and I need to look at the beginning of the shot here. I'm looking at her hands there. So I need her hands to be separated over here so the beginnings of the shots match. So there her hands are separated. So I'm going to put an in point there by clicking on this mark in. So now we're ready to put it down there. I'm not worried about the length here yet. I'm just going to drag it down here, then tighten up the length when I get it down here to the timeline or to the sequence. Now the issue is, if I drag this down to this track, we're going to do an overwrite. I'll show you. We just drag it down there and we just covered up everything and lost the interview, and now we've got a mess. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to go Control-Command-Z to undo that. What I want to do is I want to cover up this section without getting rid of the audio and without actually destroying this stuff down here. I can always get back to it later. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this video on this second track above this clip, which covers it up down there. This isn't truly compositing. Compositing is layering clips so you can see parts of each clip. Here we're not going to see parts of both clips, so we're going to see the clip on video 2 and not see the clip on video 1. I also don't want to put the audio down here, so I have 2 tracks of audio. I want only 1 track of audio. I can drag this whole thing down to track 2 like that, and then the audio associated with this goes down to audio 2, which is what it's supposed to do. The trouble is now I've got 2 tracks of audio. Don't want to do that, so I'm going to go Control-Command-Z, don't do that. So what I want to do is bring just video down to this track. The way I do that is I grab this little icon here. This drags video only. This drags audio only. This drags video only. A really clever little feature. So I just drag this. I bring only video, and I bring it to track 2, not down here to track 1, but here to track 2, where I'm just going to cover up what's below it without actually overwriting it. And I want that to go just to the point where the zoom ends. And the zoom ended right around 22 something. So I'm going to go around 22 something like that. You can see the 23 seconds there now. I'm just going to roll this guy back. I'm going to trim this guy back. And now we've covered up that ugly zoom. Let's see how that works.
Where the player is not. So that you can chase them around the court and keep them on their toes so that you can make a winning.
So there you go. We covered up that zoom. And we had their hands kind of more or less the same. Our hands are separated. Their hands are separated there. So it works. And by the time this shot is over, we've zoomed in so the hands are no longer a factor. That worked pretty well, I think. But we can also try it differently. We can try just her hands instead of the wide shot with our hands, just to see how things work differently. I'm going to delete this. Click on that and delete it. We're going to try just their hands this time. So I want to, again, shoot for right around there. Let's go get the hand shot here. We'll go look here. Double click on this. Go to some place where her hands are separated. Like right about there. something like that. That'll be our endpoint. Drag the video down to here, right again, right there. Need to go only to about 22:15 or so. Around there. We'll bring this back. We'll trim this one back. So now instead of having a wide shot with our hands, we've got a tight shot of our hands, like so.
So that you can chase them around the court and keep them on their toes so that you can make a winning.
So that works too. See how that works? So we got to cover up this jump cut now. It's our next order of business where it goes from there to there, like kind of a little boop like that. And you know, you might feel it's not such a big deal, but I think it's important to not have little jump cuts like that. So we do that again with another cutaway. Let's try the reverse cutaway here of the interviewer. We did this one already, the wide shot. We'll use the tight shot this time. Just double click on that to bring it in the source monitor. We need to get just a couple seconds. We can put the clip right at the beginning, actually. And that's typically the way you do it. Either you put the clip so it ends at the edit point or begins at the edit point. That's usually my philosophy, as opposed to straddling the edit point. So let's just look someplace where the interviewer is just kind of listening a little bit there.
I like to paint stripes.
There we go.
And the other one.
So we'll do that. We'll just click on this little endpoint here. I'm going to drag that down to the edit point here. I can pull this thing out of the way. I'll bring it down to the edit point, just the video only. Right there. Whoops. I dragged it down by mistake. I pulled it down here by mistake. I'll try it again. There we go. Let's see what happens here.
Possible. So the serve really starts with the toss.
Okay, now she kind of gave an expression there that we might not want there to have look like she's responding. So I'm going to trim that away a little bit to where she's done with that expression. Slide it over now. Try that again. Let's see how it works.
So the serve really starts with the toss.
Okay, now, and there was a phrase there, the serve starts with a toss. That's a comfortable moment to come back to the interview, so I'm sliding this over at that point. Now we've covered up that jump cut because the last frame here was the last frame of the clip, and the first frame of the next clip, the jump cut, you can't see because this is covering that up. So let's see how that looks then.
Possible. So the serve really starts with the toss, because my tossing...
There you go. So we've got those two guys covered up. We covered up the funny zoom, and we covered up the jump cut there, using just the video, not the audio portions of those two clips. So when you shoot interviews, keep in mind that you do want to get cutaways. You want to get cutaways of people's hands and also reverse cutaways of the interviewer, like so. There we go. Let's go on to the next little clip, this piano sequence. Now, this piano sequence sounds like this. Anyone who knows Debussy's Arabesque? You've heard that before. It's lovely. And what I've done is I shot this wide like this, and I got the audio from that, which runs down here. Just that one clip's audio runs here. And then I brought in this basically cutaway, in fact, this shot, the tight shot of the young lady playing the piano. And I covered up what was there before, or replaced what was there before. And then I got a tight shot of her hands here, and had that line up with the music like this. Now, if you notice, if you're really, really paying attention, her little finger there hits the note, not quite in time with the music. Let's watch that. If you listen carefully, you can hear the bass note just a little bit after she depresses that key. And so to be precise, I want to cover up that shot and not show that little thing that's a little bit out of time, just because, you know, that metronome in our heads isn't always exactly right. So I'm going to back up to the point just before she depresses that key by pressing the left arrow key. Now I'm going to cover up that little spot where she just kind of doesn't quite match exactly how she played the piece the first time. So what do I cover it up with? I'm going to go back over here. Need to go up one level by clicking on this. I'm going to control double click on piano to keep this guy inside the project panel. There we go. I've got these shots, got the wide shot, got this medium shot here, got her face shot, which I could use, but I've already used it. Got this low shot right there that I'm going to cover up right now. And then I've got my fallback. I've got shots of the music. Here, this shot of the music has her hands, so that'd be really hard to get that right. If you hear the shot of the music, it's just a static shot. This is my fallback. Whenever I shoot something like music like this, where I might have the timing off, I always try to get a cutaway of the music itself to use in moments like this. So I'm going to double click here to bring it up in the source monitor. There we go. And I just need to take a couple of seconds here. Let's see. We are currently at 23:20. I want to go to the end of this clip, so I press the down arrow key, 23:20, and we're going to go to Oh, 29:23. So 6 seconds worth of shot there. That's a pretty long shot, but we can do it. Let me go over here and make sure we got 6 seconds worth of this thing. So I click on that. We got plenty of time. 10 seconds. So I'm going to drag just the video only over here. Let me go back to this point where she just is going to touch that bass key. So right there. Back up a few frames with my left arrow key. There we go. Now I'm going to cover that up. So I'm going to take video only from here. Drag it down here. Right there. And now I just need to move it over to the edit point because I know that we're going back to this wide shot, which is actually the original shot. So we know that's going to be right on time because that shot and that shot are the exact same thing. They're both the original piano 1 shot. So I'm going to drag this fellow over to the left here like so. And now we've covered up that small, minuscule mistiming. And we'll see how this works here. So that works out just fine. No one's the wiser that we just had a little bit of mistiming, and I've got this cutaway that I shot just in case something like this happens. And then I did a couple things here at the end that if you're paying attention, really looking closely, you might be wondering what those things are at the end. I'm going to zoom in a bit by pressing the plus key to show you. I put a little cross dissolve here to fade out the video and a cross fade to fade out the audio like this. That just to kind of ease out because when I shot this, I didn't have her play the entire piece, just that little segment there so that I could use it as an example for cutaways, plus some other things that I'm going to talk about down the road. So that, folks, is how you use cutaways. You use cutaways to deal with little problem areas for your editing. When shots are too similar, you've got some kind of awkward camera move, or you've got two sound bites put together where there's going to be an obvious little jump cut from one bite to the next. In the previous lesson, I discussed how to use the trim tool to make edits in a sequence on the timeline panel. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the other two commonly used tools, the ripple edit tool and the rolling edit tool. To follow along, go to the working files folder, open up projects, and open up 0603 Ripple Rolling. This will look familiar to you. We've got the bike riding sequence and the 6 bike riding clips. This time we're going to use just 4 of them, at least at the get-go. So scroll down a bit. Click on Bike Riding 3 and then shift-click on Bike Riding 6 and drag those 4 clips over here to the sequence. We have a 4-clip sequence now instead of 6 because I want to use those 2 low-angle shots here instead of the higher-angle shots. There we go. Now, let's take a look at the Tools panel here. The top tool, your go-to tool, is the Selection tool. That's on there by default. You almost always have that one selected. As you move around, the tool changes. It's actually a context-sensitive tool that changes to another kind of tool depending on where you're looking at it. If I go over here, I get the trim tool, go down here, and I can control that little rubber band. Depends on where I put the tool. It changes into some other tool because it's a context-sensitive tool, but most times you use it as a trim tool like that. You also have a ripple edit tool there. If I click that, it's going to look just like the trim tool, except it's going to be yellow. And here's the rolling edit tool. This will kind of look like the ripple edit tool. It's going to be red, but it works only when you hover between 2 clips. That means that you can change the lengths of both clips at the same time. If I were to drag it left, that would lengthen the one to the right and shorten the one to the left. But here I can't do it at all because I'm looking at the entire clip here. There are no header tail frames that I can move around. Those little triangles again say there are no header tail frames here that you can work with. So we'll use the rolling edit tool only after we have trimmed some stuff away so we've got some head and tail frames to work with. So what difference is there between the ripple tool and the trim tool, both of which look very similar, right? I'll go back to the selection tool, hover over the end here, we've got the trim tool, I trim it, and we leave a gap. To fill the gap, I've got to right-click in the gap and say ripple delete. Kind of an extra step. I'm going to go Control or Command Z to undo that. If I select the ripple edit tool and drag that little trim over, watch the right-hand side of the clips, the end of Bike Riding 6, and all those clips, 4, 5, and 6, will all slide over to fill the gap. So Ripple Edit tool basically does 2 things at once. It does a trim and a ripple delete. That's what Ripple Edit does. It's a very convenient tool. It really is kind of the go-to tool, more so than the trim tool. But at any rate, there it is. You can use it. Now, there are a couple ways to access it. You can just click on this guy to get it, or press the B key to go to the Ripple Edit tool. V being the selection tool. Watch, I'll go Selection tool, B for Ripple Edit, And what's rolling edit tool? Hover over there, N, press the N key, and it's rolling edit. But most times you have the V key pressed, and you got the selection tool, and so you want to go to the ripple edit tool. How do you go there? What's the quick way to go there? You hold down a keyboard modifier. You hold down the keyboard modifier, Control in Windows, Command in Mac. When you're hovering over the end of the clip like this, you got the trim tool, hold down the keyboard modifier, Control or Command, and boom, it turns into the ripple edit tool. And if you get to the intersection, it turns into the rolling edit tool. Over here to the side, it's ripple. Intersection, rolling. To the side, it's ripple. Take my finger off the Control key, it's back to being a trim tool. That's how that works. If I hold down the Control or Command key and then click here, it puts an edit point there such that no matter where I go, no matter what kind of tool I've got selected, when I come back here, it's going to behave like the ripple edit tool. Like so. I click away to deselect that edit. Press Control or Command Z to undo it. So the ripple edit tool really is the tool that you probably will use more often than the trim tool, because you do usually want to have things ripple over. You want to do the edit, the trim, and the ripple delete at the same time. But nevertheless, you have this option. Let's take a look at preferences for a moment, because this relates to how these tools work. Go to Edit Preferences, or in Mac, Premiere Pro Preferences. Go down here. Go down to Trim. And there's this little checkbox, which is unchecked by default. It says Allow Selection Tool, that's that V tool with just the arrow, to choose roll and ripple trims without the modifier key. In other words, if you just hover over an edit point, it automatically is either ripple or rolling, depending on exactly where you're locating the cursor. This way, the ripple and rolling are always on by default. You hold on the Control key then to access the trim tool. I'll just show you how that works. Say OK. Now when I hover at an edit point, it's going to be the ripple edit tool or rolling and not the trim. Hold on the keyboard modifier and it switches over to the regular trim tool. That's what that checkbox does. And you can choose to have that checkbox checked or not. The default view is to not have it checked, so I'm going to go back to the default because that's what I expect most people will do. So I'll go back to trim, uncheck that, and we'll go back to the default way. All right, let's do some editing. So the first order of business is that I want to return this clip back to its previous state. And one thing that's cool about the ripple edit tool is that you can extend the clip, and it looks like you're extending it into the next clip, but what you're doing is just lengthening the clip. If I take my trim tool here and just click on here and try to move it to the right, it won't move. It pushes up against this clip. The trim tool won't allow you to extend the length of a clip. The same would be true if I were, let's say, trim this clip on the right. I'm going to use the ripple edit tool to do that and trim that in. And now if I wanted to take the regular trim tool by clicking away and pushing it back, I can't push it back. I can't extend the length of a clip with the trim tool. I'll do Control or Command C to undo that. Click away to deselect that edit point. So what I want to do is I want to extend this guy back out to where it was, and then we'll work on it. So I switch over to the ripple edit tool by hovering near the intersection. If I'm on the intersection and press the Control or Command key, it turns into the rolling edit tool. Now I got to slide away to get it to be the ripple edit tool. So I'm going to extend this guy back to where it was, which I'm allowed to do with the ripple edit tool. I'm got it all the way back down to its original length. Click away for a second here and try to figure out where I want to make my edit really. I want to make it right after they go out of the scene. I think you're getting kind of used to this concept of having people go out of frame. Use my arrow key, my right arrow key, to line that guy up. There we go, now they're out. I hover my cursor over the end here, and I'm going to press down the Control or Command, turn it into the ripple edit tool, and now I'm going to just drag this in. Once I click, it puts the edit point there, so I can actually take my finger off the Control or Command key because the edit has now been put on the clip, and now it's just waiting for me to move it, so I slide it over. And now everything else slides over. The gap is filled automatically, and now we've got that edit there. Let's see how that works. These guys go right up to the edge of the frame and out. Okay, good. I also want to trim the beginning of the clip, so we get them sort of in the scene already to avoid having it be too long. Right about there looks good. I'm going to take my ripple edit tool, go to the beginning here. It's going to be the trim tool now. I can do this and then right click and say ripple delete, which is, the two-step process. So instead though, I'd rather use the ripple edit tool. So I'll deselect that and go Control or Command Z to undo that edit. Hover toward the beginning, press down the Control or Command, get the ripple edit tool, drag it over. But now that gap that I created at the beginning is going to be filled because all the clips, all 4 of these clips are going to slide over to the left. Boom, there they go. So let's see what we've got there. Got them entering the scene there, and we're going to have them go through the frame, and great. What I need to do now is pick them up here as they come into the frame. So let's look right there. You can see there's shadow on the right. Use the back arrow key, the left arrow key to back up. A couple more frames there, and now I'm going to do a ripple edit up to the current time indicator. So I hover toward the beginning of the clip, turns into the trim tool, hold down the Control or Command. I'm going to put it right at the intersection to show you what goes on there. turns into the rolling edit. I don't want that. I want ripple edit, so I slide to the right a little bit. Now triple edit. Now I click, and the edit point is now placed on the clip. I can take my cursor away. I can go for a walk, whatever I want to do, but that edit point will remain there. And all I need to do is just click on it and drag it over. That makes that ripple edit. Slides everybody over to the left. Good. Let's take a look at that edit now. Go out of the frame, into the frame. Piece o' cake. All right. Right about there, I think I want to then cut. I want to trim these guys over to the left. I could use the trim tool to slide it over and then do a ripple delete, but I'm going to use the ripple edit tool, of course. Hold down the control key here, get the rolling edit tool, so I need to slide over a bit, get the ripple edit. Click to make that edit mark, then drag it over, and we're done. Next order of business is to pick this guy up a little bit later in the clip, so I need to click away to deselect that edit point. Now I click again by holding down my controller command click to make that edit point. Drag over to that current time indicator. We've now got these edits. I'll show you the 3 of them there. I'll show you the 2 of them there. Here's the first one. And then the next one will come up here in just a moment. There we go. And now we'll trim off the end of this one a little bit. Let's say we're moving along here and camera starts sliding off right about there, so I'll do a trim back to there with the ripple edit tool. Hold down the controller command, get the rolling edit tool, slide off to one side, and get the ripple edit tool. I can take my cursor away now. We've got the edit point put on the clip, drag it over. I've got that. And finally, I'm going to trim the end here, again to the point where I like that little pan. So I like to go 3 seconds before that pan just to let it sort of settle in. So it's 21:16 up here, so I'm going to go back to like 18:16 here. Go back to 18:16 or so, right around there. It doesn't have to be exact. I need to click away now to turn off or deselect that edit point. Now I'm going to put one here at the beginning by holding in the controller command key, and now I'll drag it over. Got it. Now if I do a ripple edit at the end of this clip, it doesn't really make much difference because there's no clip next to it. So I can do ripple or trim. It'll have the same function. So I'll take my trim tool and just drag this guy over to the left like that. We've now got this guy all nice and trimmed up. I want to expand the view of the clips a little bit by just pressing the backslash key. The backslash key spreads out the view, zooms in on the clips so you get a better view of the clips there. You can work with them a little better when they're larger like that. It doesn't change their length, it just changes their relative length by zooming in on the sequence. All right, and click away to deselect that. Now we're going to use the rolling edit tool. I want to edit between 2 clips. So let's say right there, we go from there to there. I want to extend her ride a little bit farther and shorten this clip on the right. So we won't change the overall length of this sequence, but I will extend this clip a little bit to the right. And when I do that, I'm kind of moving into this next clip. I'm going to roll the edit so that we roll this little edit point into the next clip a little bit and extend the one on the left, shorten the one on the right. The way to do that is to get a rolling edit tool. I hover at the intersection now, press down the controller command key, and there's the rolling edit tool, that 4-arrow thing. Now I just click on that. I can take my finger off the control key. Don't need to worry about what I'm holding over here. The cursor will always turn into the rolling edit tool where you've got that edit already placed. I can drag this to the right a little bit. Right about there. So I'm extending the clip on the left, the point of view, looking at the rider. I'm also shortening the clip on the right, shortening the introduction, the end point. I've just changed that edit. Let's see how that looks. Goes from there to there. That's good. Let's do the same thing back here. We got the folks going through the scene here. The timing is just right, I think. We can adjust it overall by putting a rolling edit there. So I'm going to hover over there, hold on the control key, the command key, and turn it into the rolling edit tool. Click to place the edit there, and now drag it left or right. And the timing will be the same, just that they will not go out of frame here, and then we'll pause for a while until they come into frame on the right. Let's just see how that works. They don't go out of frame, then they come into frame, which is a bit of an awkward edit. I think you'll probably agree with that. But I'm going to go back and hover over there. The edit point's not gone away. It's still there, just that. So they do go out of frame. Maybe go a little bit farther out of frame, but that'll be about there. Here we go. Now let's watch it. And there you got it. All right, let's do one more rolling edit here. Let's go along here to where we go from that shot, going off the distance, to that shot there. So I'm going to put my cursor between the two, hold on the controller command key, click there to add that edit. And now I'm going to drag this thing left or right. Let's see here. How much farther do we want to go off into the distance there? Go a little bit farther off in the distance like so, and pick up this rider a little bit later. That means now we've not changed the length of the overall project. The sequence stays the same length, but we've changed where the edit goes there. We've rolled the edit to the right. Let's see how that works. Farther off into the distance, and pick her up like that. So that's how you make ripple and rolling edits. You might come to make ripple edits so often that you might want to switch the preferences so that when you click over an intersection, it becomes the ripple edit tool rather than the trim tool. Nevertheless, I'm going to keep my preferences at the default settings where you hold your cursor over an intersection and it becomes the trim tool unless you hold down a control or command modifier key, it becomes a ripple tool or the rolling edit tool, like so.